Mythical Island has introduced a plethora of new decks and strategies to Pokemon Pocket, but Mewtwo is still on top thanks to one crucial item. I'm Rose from RoseTCG, and today we're going to take a look at the best way to play Mewtwo EX in the Mythical Island format. Before we get into the full breakdown of all the cards you can use in a Mewtwo deck list, first let's break down all the pros and cons of this deck so that you guys can see where it excels and where it struggles. What makes this deck so powerful is Mewtwo's incredibly strong side drive attack. This is one of the strongest attacks in the game and is capable of one-shotting most relevant cards in the meta like Celebi EX, Pikachu EX, and even itself in mirror matchups. Mewtwo is also one of the bulkiest cards in the meta. With 150 HP, Mewtwo can tank hits from pretty much everything except for Charizard EX and Gyarados EX, and even Gyarados needs help from cards like Giovanni, Greninja, or Druddigon. This combination of attack strength and HP bulk makes Mewtwo one of the most well-balanced attackers in the game. The final asset of this deck is that with the addition of Mythical Slab, it actually has really good synergy with other cards in its engine, which we'll talk about later on. Despite how strong Mewtwo is, there are two weak points for this deck that can make some games feel impossible to win. The first of which is that it has a really slow setup. This deck needs a Gardevoir on the bench to dish out side drives reliably. This makes matchups against fast-paced decks like Pikachu EX and Blaine Aggro really difficult if you can't match their speed. By that same token, the early game of Mewtwo EX just isn't very consistent. If you can't find Mewtwo and Ralts on turn 1 and evolve into Kirlia and Gardevoir in subsequent turns, this deck completely stalls out. That said, when this deck gets in motion, it's almost impossible to stop. Moving on to the key Pokemon, your primary attacker is Mewtwo EX. Everyone is familiar with this card by this point, but as a refresher, this is a basic EX, Psychic type with 150 HP and the Psychic Sphere and Side Drive attacks, both of which are really strong attacks. For 1 Psychic Energy and 1 Colorless Energy, Psychic Sphere does 50 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. When paired with Giovanni, this attack is capable of knocking out pretty much every evolving basic Pokemon. This is really good for establishing early leads before closing out games with a Side Drive into an EX Pokemon. Side Drive is the main attack that you're looking to build into every game. For 2 Psychic Energy and 2 Colorless Energy, this attack deals 150 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. The only drawback is that you have to discard 2 Psychic Energy every time you use it. By itself, this is pretty bad, but this effect is remedied with Gardevoir. Moving on, we have Jynx as a secondary attacker for this deck. Jynx acts more as a tech card in specific situations, but you can get chip damage value in lots of early game scenarios. What makes this card a good inclusion for Mewtwo decks is its Psychic attack. For 1 Psychic Energy and 1 Colorless Energy, this attack does 30 damage plus 20 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. This is helpful against energy-reliant decks like Charizard and Gyarados, but what makes Jynx a mandatory inclusion in this format is the introduction of Celebi EX. Not only is Celebi energy-reliant, Superior's Jungle Totem ability also applies to Jynx's Psychic attack. This allows Jynx to one-shot Celebi pretty easily in late game scenarios. The final key Pokemon is of course Gardevoir. This deck simply wouldn't be meta without this card, all thanks to the Psy Shadow ability. Once per turn, you may take a Psychic Energy from the Energy Zone and attach it to your active Psychic Pokemon. This ability is what allows you to use Mewtwo's Side Drive attack in back-to-back turns to close out games once you're set up. The final key card is the new Mythical Slab. Without this card, this deck would certainly still be meta, but with its inclusion, Mewtwo has been able to remain a top 3 deck in the format. This card allows you to look at the top card of your deck and add it to your hand if it's a Psychic Pokemon. This allows you to find Kirlias and Gardevoirs to evolve into with so much more consistency than in the Genetic Apex format. At first glance, this card seems a little weak because the odds of you finding what you're looking for in the early game isn't that high, but for more experienced players who are familiar with deck thinning and sequencing, this card can make all the difference. An important thing to note is that if you don't find a Psychic Pokemon, whatever card was on top of your deck goes to the bottom of your deck. So even if you don't find what you were looking for, you still raise the odds of top decking into Kirlia or Gardevoir on the next turn. Don't sleep on this card. Next up, we have the fill cards. Starting with the items, you'll definitely want to include Poké Ball. This card randomly adds any basic Pokemon from your deck to your hand. This allows you to search for Mewtwo, Ralts, or Jynx, which is crucial for early game setup. X-Speed is included in this deck as a safety net for games where you start Ralts or Jynx in the active. It allows you to pivot into Mewtwo without wasting the energy attaching to them, which would disrupt your setup. Moving on to the fill supporters, we have Professor's Research. This card doesn't really need to be explained as it's a mandatory staple in every pocket deck. Drawing 2 cards is the best engine accelerator in the game, and in a late game dependent deck like this, it makes surviving the early game a lot easier. The next fill supporter is Giovanni. You don't see quite as much use out of this card in this deck compared to others, but it can be really useful for early game knockouts against weaker basic Pokemon like we discussed earlier. Sabrina is another mandatory inclusion, but one that isn't as necessary in this deck due to Mewtwo's high attack power. This deck doesn't usually care about what it knocks out so long as it's able to knock out something. By the time you're fully set up, 150 damage turns Sabrina into more of a backup plan or defensive card. The final fill supporter is Leaf. This card probably sees the least play of any card in the deck, but it's super helpful for rare scenarios where you have a weakened Mewtwo EX or Gardevoir that you need to swap to the bench without wasting energies for retreat cost. Moving on to the tech cards, first we have Mew EX. This card is very situational, but does help against Mewtwo's more difficult matchups. It one-shots Charizard EX and gives you the edge in the Mewtwo Mirror matchup. However, those benefits don't do enough to make up for how much consistency you're losing in the core Mewtwo Gardevoir engine by playing it. If you're really concerned about Charizard or the Mirror matchup, then go for it, but it's not very necessary. The final card is Red Card. Red Card definitely has its faults and can oftentimes be a waste, but in a late game deck like Mewtwo, any advantage you can get through disruption is a major plus. It's not necessary, but if you find that you're struggling into faster decks, then Red Card is a decent option. If you're looking to play Mewtwo EX, then here's the list I recommend. 2 Mewtwo EX, 2 Jynx, 2 Gardevoir lines, 2 Mythical Slab, 2 Poké Ball, 1 X-Speed, 1 Red Card, 2 Professor's Research, 1 Giovanni, 1 Sabrina, and 1 Leaf. Let's take a look at a couple game replays so that you guys can see this deck in action. Okay. Full Gardevoir line in hand. We got Poké Ball and Mythical Slab to hopefully find Mewtwo. Oh, they got the shine stuff on Druddigon. Okay, another Kirlia for safety. Mewtwo, perfect. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, I feel like the deck has been so consistent for me today. Really getting good luck at finding the cards when I need them. Super fortunate, Misty. Alright, so we Kirlia here. Attach. And then, yeah, why not? Let's Mythical Slab. See if we find anything. Nope. Alright, so ideally I can run into an X-Speed here, so I don't have to attach to Kirlia. Okay, perfect. This is actually crazy. Like, I'm getting everything I need. The issue here is that because it's Gyarados, as long as he can find the Gyarados, I'm kind of in trouble. Especially because attacking into Druddigon is going to put me in knockout range, and even if I find Sabrina, I'm still going to end up, like, he'll just switch into the other Druddigon, so. Okay, research, hopefully no Gyarados. Okay, I need a second Mewtwo, like really bad. That's not good. Okay. Probably should have attached a Gardevoir there. Okay, cool. They conceded. So they were not finding Gyarados. We lucked out there. Okay, open Jynx and Mythical Slab and research. So we didn't get the core cards that we would want, like Mewtwo, Ralts, but we do have ways to find them. That's not good. Okay. Yeah, we don't have a good. Yeah, we went first too. Okay, got a Gardevoir. Let's open with research. Another Slab and Mewtwo. Okay. I feel like I kind of just have to risk it. I mean, Pikachu is such a fast deck. I don't have time to just stall out and wait to find Ralts. But my odds of finding it are not very good with Slab right now. Oh my gosh. Okay. Alright. Perfect. Okay, so we'll hold the second one. And hopefully we can find Kirlia next turn. This isn't looking terribly doomed, but it's not looking great either. Okay, attached to Blitzel instead of Pikachu. Interesting. Alright. Didn't find the basic he wanted with the first Pokeball. And not benching anything. Okay. Another Mewtwo. Yeah, we should bench 2 Mewtwo's this game. Attach. And then we need to find Kirlia here, please. Insane. There's no way. Okay. This is the power of Mythical Slab. This is the power of Mythical Slab. Okay. And we'll pass here. So we're still not fully set up. We have to evolve Gardevoir next turn. We have it in hand. It's good. But we still need a way to get Jynx out of the active, get Mewtwo in. I might just let them take the Jynx knockout with Pikachu and then switch in there, but we'll see. I'm curious what they decide to do with the Thunder Spear this turn. I don't love that, but they're going for Gardevoir, so let's just attach Mewtwo and then we'll Side Shadow with the Jynx. But I'm probably gonna unless they start pressuring Mewtwo, then I'm gonna wait to switch in probably. Yeah, because I can Sabrina next turn anyway and switch, and then yeah, okay. Like, I definitely understand that Mythical Slab is, like, because you have to luck into it with only being the top card, and it has to be a Psychic Pokemon, and you don't have control over which one it is. I definitely understand if people are hesitant to try it out. But, okay, yeah, now he's pressuring. I just think the value you can get from it in certain clutch scenarios like this, like getting Ralts, Kirlia back-to-back, already having Gardevoir in hand, it just... The games it works, it works. So we're gonna attach here. We're gonna retreat. And then Side Shadow. And now we Sabrina. And this should be game. That's crazy. Last game of the day. Mythical Slab got to put in work. Both of them were effective. Both of them came in clutch. You love to see it. And the next turn we just side drive for game. If they don't concede, which they probably will. Seven cards in hand. Nothing they can do about it. That's the power of Mewtwo. Also feels good to just take down Pikachu because this deck was so annoying for so long. And now there's like actual decent play into this deck. Oh, going for paralysis. Okay. That's interesting. Oh my gosh, okay. And that's the Dene putting in work. Alright, yeah, this is tricky. So they still don't have knockout even with Giovanni because Pikachu can only do 100. So they're gonna have to go for a second paralysis on Mewtwo. I think we'll start building this Mewtwo up in case it gets to that point. Side Shadow. They don't have any points yet, which is really good for us. So we'll pass. So even if they knock out this Mewtwo, as long as we get the other one set up, we'll be alright. So it should still be game regardless. Cool to see Dedenne getting some value this game though. I feel like that card was really hyped up before the set dropped, and then once Mythical Island came out, people just kind of forgot about it. And like it's obviously been included in a lot of Pikachu decks and people are playing it, but I feel like people are still kind of underestimate the value of it. Especially in situations like this. Yeah, like double paralysis. Had they gotten a point earlier on in the game, then they would have won because of the Dene. Like, I think that card is disgusting. Side Shadow. And then we end, and then if they go for knockout next turn on Mewtwo, we just come back in with our other Mewtwo and go for game. Yeah. No way out for them. This was a good last game. This was a really good last game. A lot of value out of like every card in both decks. So this goes to show you like Mewtwo at its best beats Pikachu at its best. It's just, most of the time, Mewtwo is not operating at its best. Alright, so now we attach. Side Shadow. And Side Drive for game. Yep, there's the concede. Very nice, very nice, very nice. If you found this video helpful, feel free to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out our socials and join our community on Discord too. Good luck in your games, and thanks for watching.